lechatchila you're selling chametz, so the point is to have it someplace. You're renting that place to the guy, that's his, and that's selling. That's the best way to do it. Today we do kulas on top of kulas. It's easier. The ladies are overworked. So we close it off. But whatever we close off, make sure that it's clearly identified, closed off, that belongs to the guy, because that's his place, and this is your place.
So mamish, that becomes his property right there.
Yeah, she's renting it. Yeah. Now we don't. Some choices. Okay. There's different ways to do it. In the mechira, when you sell it to a guy, I wasn't going to really get into this, but when you sell it to a guy, there's a few reasons why we sell the chametz. I mean, in halacha it's brought down in chametz she'aval al Pesach. You want to eat the chametz after Pesach, and the question is you can't eat chametz that was left in the Jew's rishus on Pesach after Pesach. It's asur. So in order to eat the chametz after Pesach, we sell it before Pesach. That's where it comes in. It shouldn't become asur. So that works even if you're mavatal it. Even if you have chametz in your house and you're mavatal it, so technically you're not over. But we paskin, as Scheiner, we paskin that if you had chametz in your house which you didn't know about, but you were mavatal it, and then you find a piece of bread you can't eat. We paskin you can't eat it after Pesach. So we're only going to eat after Pesach things that were actually sold or were never in your rishus to begin with. That's one reason it's brought down, and that.
But that's pretty logical. How can you paskin otherwise? You're mavatal something. What are you? So you're going to be. How does it work? How do you reverse?
Technically, if you're not over
that beetle, I don't.
Yeah, if you're not over on value on it, so technically it doesn't become asur. Chazal only asked chametz after Pesach because you were over on it for having it in Pesach. It's well interesting. But in any case, that's to get off the drabanan. So any drabanan mechir would work for chametz for after Pesach. But the question is like this: you don't want to be over value on Pesach. You don't want to be over having chametz on Pesach. So if you're mavatal it, good. You're not over deraisa. But if you're not mavatal it, you have real chametz around and you're selling it, so you want to make sure that mechira works deraisa. It has to work on a deraisa level. Now we have a problem because most sales only work on a rabbinic level, because it's machlokes in the Gemara, if kesef is kind of mashicha is kind of, if you're kind of with cash or you're kind of with mashicha, and as a machlokes how we paskin. For a Jew and a guy, whatever works for a Jew, the opposite's for a guy. For a Jew, kesef is kind of midaraisa. For a guy, mashiach is kind of midaraisa. For a Jew, mashiach is kind of midaraisa. For a guy, kesef is tafshin out of a pasuk. So it's a problem. Cash you could do. The guy gives you $1 and he's kind of all the chametz. No problem. It's kind of midaraisa. We do it in a way, even though all the chametz is worth, let's say, from the whole city, the guy selling all the city's chametz is worth, let's say, $10,000. The guy gives $1, but the point is he owes $10,000. He's kind of all the chametz, and the rest is a loan. He owes, if he's at the end of the day, he's going to have to give you. It's like you buy a land, so you don't have to put down the full amount. You can take a loan on the rest. So we're lending the guy. In other words, so he owes us $9,999. But then what happens is, at the end of the day, after Pesach, we tell him to pay up his loan, and. Or if he wants, we make a buyback option and we buy it back after Pesach, and that's what we do. But we don't, even if he doesn't pay the loan, he still owns the chametz, because we don't want the mechira should be out tonight. Then let's say he's not going to pay at the end, and it comes out, you own the chametz. So that's kinyan kesef. Kinyan kesef we could do, but the problem is if your whole kesef is not kind of deraisa by a guy, the only thing that's kind of guy is mashicha. So the best thing to do, you have your goyish neighbors, take your chametz, put it in a box, give it to the guy makes mashiach on it, or hakbah, and he's koined it, and that's how he's koined it deraisa. But if you're leaving the chametz in your house and the Rav is selling it for you, obviously he's not making mashiach, so he has to make other kind of kinyanim, and it gets into a whole shaila, which kind of kinyan is deraisa. So they do kinyan chotzer, they do kinyan agav, they do kinyan sit musa, they do which is they make a handshake, and then they do shtar also. So shtar only works on the ground, and then the ground is kind of the other thing. So they do all kinds of kinyanim to try to get around how you do it deraisa, and there are a lot of different shtaros made up. It's not exactly uniform. Everybody doesn't do the exact same thing, but that's the Rav's problem, as I say.
So all of this, so it's really you're saying. I'm hearing, but I don't know if it's correct that. So really, there's the Rabbanan, the whole thing is set up in terms of the sale, but you're saying that it has to be deraisa in terms of how that's all completed.
It has to be deraisa because the guy has to own your chametz deraisa, and if he doesn't own it deraisa, even if rabbinically he owns it, Midaraisa, you still own it. And if you own it, you're over on Balura.
So which part? I mean, because it sounds like there's two things going on. There's a Rabbanan and Deraisa kind of floating in the air. How does that come together?
No, once the coin is Deraisa, it's this. If the only coin is Rabban, in other words, if it comes out of Shiloh after Pesach, which happens, it happened a few years ago that the rabbi gave a whole stack of shtaros to the guy, and then he noticed after Pesach in his drawer there was one shtar that didn't make it. So if you're talking about Midrabanan for Chon Misha'aval of Pesach, so we're much more lenient. Any kinyan will work. You have one of the 20 kinyanim that he makes. But if it's the Raisa, we got to make sure you have everything.
So the shtar is the Raisa?
Shtar could be is the Raisa.
The Mechira is the Rabban.
What?
The Mechira is the Rabban anyway. We don't need to do us. You don't need to sell.
You do need to sell. Because you're not mevatel your whole closet full of Cheerios and whatever. You want it. So with the Raisa, you got to sell it. Yeah.
How much interplay does Kavana play out with the Goy?
That's a good question.
Because I know the Goy here has been doing it for 20 years, and he knows he never buys it.
Yeah. So this is a question of harama. This is a question of harama comes in, and that's why some people say that they don't sell chametz. But the logic that we sell it is like this. In other words, you have this question two times. You have this question by Shvius, when they sell the land for Shvius to get a Heter Mechius Karka. So you have the question, is it harama? You have to Arabs. And then you have the question of selling chametz. So it's much more complicated by Shvius, believe it or not, than by chametz. Even though chametz is the Raisa, Shvius is a question of Raisa today. But the reason is because by chametz, we want to sell the chametz. So in other words, I don't want in any way in the world that I should have chametz on Pesach. And if worse comes to worse, and the rabbi will come and tell me that the sale is not going through, so I'll take all my chametz and I'll dump it into the sea. I'm not interested. I have no interest in being over on the Issa Deraisa. So das makna you have. There's 100% here das makna. So the logic is that by a guy, even if he doesn't have complete das koina, as long as he knows what's going on, we explain him. And we go through the shtamachim, we explain him every step of the way how it's working, so he understands it. But even though if he says, I'm not really getting it, I can come back. But the bottom line is that the das makna is there. And in halacha, das makna can make the kinyan even if it's something missing in the das of the koina. So that's how it works.
So follow-up, shouldn't we ask the goy, either two options, get a different goy every year, who doesn't know exactly that he's not going to...
Yeah, but it gets complicated because you want them to understand it.
Or the second option might be that he actually goes to somebody's house.
Some places do that. Some places the guy actually goes and he'll walk into your house and take a bottle of schnapps.
By the Rob's house, doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. He'll take a bottle of schnapps and he'll have to pay for it at the end, but it's worth it. He gets a little discount on it. If it's worked into the shtar
So
he gets a discount.
He would be allowed to do that.
He can do it. He can come to your house. He can come to your house and ask, "Where's the chametz?" Walk in and take whatever he likes. It took you, I don't know, this bottle is rare and you couldn't find it, but he gets usually about 4% off the price of it. He gets, and he could buy it, and he just has to pay you for the he has to pay you.
Let's say that
He doesn't even have to pay you. He just owes you the money. So if he doesn't pay you, it's still a good mechira. It's just he owes you money. So he'll have to owe you that money of whatever's missing. That's how it works.
that closet that you sold to the guy. Let's say on Pesach you realize there's something extremely important there that you might need. Is there any way to get in there?
There's a way. Technically, you could go in there. You have Drisas Regal. You could go in. It's not recommended, but you could go in.
Are you selling the closet or are you selling the chametz?
We're selling the chazan what's in the closet, but we do rent the place underneath. We do rent the place underneath. In other words, the closet is rented to the guy.
Why is that?
Well, for a few reasons. For the kinyan, to make the kinyan, and also that the chametz should be out of your rishus. You're not supposed to have the chametz in your rishus, even if you sold to the guy when the shabur brings down. So we rent it. But l'maisa, if you need something in there that's not chametz, you could go in there. You should try to work it out that you don't have to before Pesach, because it's not l'chatchila, it should be closed off. But if you're really stuck and you need something in there, you do have Drisas Regal, you could go in. Okay, I just wanted to finish that off from last week. Where Mechira plays in.
Sorry to get stuck on this because I remember on the one from the Bayit here on the Mechira, it just says that you're selling your chametz in your rishus. I don't think it says anything about the rishus itself. As far as I'm concerned.
And the one you signed doesn't say anything. It just says that you're giving authorization to the rabbi to sell. It doesn't say what you're
Sell
doing.
the chametz in your Rosh Hashanah.
No, but whenever we made it, we went to the rabbi.
Yeah.
Obviously, selling chametz, you make
And to lease all places wherein the chametz owned by me may be found, especially in the premises located at the address. That's what it says in the green form. But yeah,
Not yet.
just to give you an idea what the shtar mechir looks like. I mean, the bayit's a little different, but just to go through all the kinyanim here, there's
Wow.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the clauses here. You know how many kinyanim go on in the shtar mechir?
That's amazing.
That's the one the rabbi uses.
So were you using the one from Rabbi Tav from
The one from, I don't know which is just Rabbi Tab or Rabbi Vale's, but this is the one that Rabbi Vale had. What?
Oh, okay.
The green one is
The green one is one you use, but the one that he uses over here, this was one Rabbi Vale used last year. I'm not sure what Rabbi Tab used.
He's also a lawyer, so he'd be longer.
Someone sells somebody else's chametz.
You have to make him a
Not
shliach.
allowed to show it one up, or-
It's not so simple. You make the rabbi a shliach to sell, and the minhag of paying the rabbi to do it, it has a makar in halacha because the question of a few reasons why you do it. It helps the mechira go along because how do you know who he sold it? I mean, we assume the rabbi sold it. But you make him a shliach. But if I make a shliach to do X and then I don't hear from him until did he do it? We're talking about the rices here. So if he's a pile, you pay him as like a pile. Works better, but in any case, you make him a shliach to sell it. Otherwise, he can't sell it. Now, could you do it as zachan? Is a good shayla if you could do it zachan, because he's selling. Zachan is to be kind for someone. Here you're selling, but you're selling it for a purpose, for a good purpose, and a shayla for mitzvah purposes. It's a shayla if you could do that. Zachan. Okay, what I wanted to speak about, still all the time, is turning over the kitchen. Turning over the kitchen for Pesach and Hechsher Kalim. So we'll start with a little bit the Hechsher Kalim. They're basically, just to simplify it, there's basically two types of Hechsher we make. One is called Hagolah, and one is called Liban. Now there are different subcategories in each one, but Hagolah means to boil up a pot, like they do. The CR will come in, they take a big vat, boil up water, and you put your pot in it. There are other ways to do it. You don't have to come here. You can do it at home. There are other ways to do it, but the idea is to boil out the Isser. That's one way. That's Hagolah. Hagolah is Kalim. And the other way of doing to be machshir is to do Liban. Liban is to actually burn it out. You make it so hot that it burns the chametz or any Isser. If you have a tray for pot, you burn it out, that the Isser inside becomes burnt out and it's out. Now, so certain things, we do different ways. For example, if I want to kasher my pot, so the pot was used for water, for cooking food, for cooking liquid in it, or food in it. So that pot, all it needs is Hagolah. It doesn't have to be burnt. You don't have to leave it. It needs Hagolah. So you boil it out. So you fill it up with water. The best thing is to bring it to a vat, so you could put it in water. But if you can't do that, if it's too big of a pot, you can't put it in another pot. So you just fill it up with water. You boil it until the top, and then you take a hot stone. You boil up and you put it into the pot. The water overflows and goes over the sides, and it gets the rim on top. That's called Hagolah. That's how you get the whole pot. You don't have to get the outsides. Also, you just have to get the inside and the top. So that's the way to do it. If you can't put it into a bigger.
Is that 100% necessary?
Yeah, because you got to get it over the top.
Well, if you boil water right to the top, it's
Yeah, but so it doesn't really spill over. It doesn't spill over enough to make sure you get the whole thing. So in halacha it says to put in a rock, but the rock should be hot so it keeps the water boiling at that level. It doesn't lose its heat. You don't want it to be irikli rishon. You want it to be actually still bubbling. We're going to get to that rock soon.
Could you?
But
How do you get a hot rock out of
Yeah,
rock?
no, you just take a rock and put it on your stove, and don't use your hands. Use a.
Oh, now you tell me.
Put it in.
You couldn't just, for example, leave it next to the burner while the pot's boiling. Would that be enough?
Yeah.
You actually have to put it on the burner.
No, you have to put it on another burner.
On another burner.
Yeah. So that's how you would do it if you wanted to kasher your pot for Pesach. I assume most people, if you want to kasher, you come here and do it in there, or use Pesach dishes. Everybody has Pesach pots. But that's what Hagolah is. Hagolah is boiling up the water, and then it boils it out. Liban would be doing your oven, blowtorch, and we'll get to that. So doing your oven would be Liban. So you have both categories. I want to talk about Hagolah first, and then we'll get to Liban. Hagolah, we have to understand two things about Hagolah. You have, the Chazal consider every time you're cooking something, anytime you use something, that the food goes into the walls of the pot. So even if you don't see it, you wash it, you scrub it, it looks clean, but we consider that there's still the food inside the pot itself. So therefore you have to get that out. Now, Liban, we understand, you burn it out, so it gets burnt. But Hagolah, no matter how many times you're cooking it, the food keeps on going in and out. So let's say I cook my pot of water. So now all the taste of all the meat and potatoes and whatever I had inside the pot is going to come into the water, but it's going to go back into the pot because I'm still cooking in the same pot. So in order to do a proper Hagolah, we have one of two things. You have to have a shishim. You have to have 60 times. We know there's such a thing called as bittul b'shishim. Everything is bottled in 60 times. So you have to have 60 times the amount of water as the walls of the pot, because we always consider the walls of the pot to be fully complete with whatever Isser was cooked with. So if we're talking about chametz, so we considered, even though logically we don't understand that, but halachically we considered the whole amount of the walls as one complete piece of chametz, and you have to have 60 times that walls in order that when you cook it up, that goes in, whatever goes out of the pot goes into the water, becomes bottled. Then we don't care if it goes back into the pot. Now, this is problematic because halachically, especially in the old days when the pots were much thicker and full of holes, halachically, a pot does not have 60 times the amount of water inside of it as the walls itself. That's why when you want to do Hagolah with 60 amount, you have to come here where they have a big vat, and then you can put it in, because then you have 60 times the amount of the pot. But in your pot, you're not going to have 60 times the amount.
What is it that you're measuring?
What?
Volume?
No, the entire walls and bottom of the pot. You're talking about this cup, so the thickness of the walls of the whole cup itself, as opposed to the water that's inside it. So it's not going to be 60 times as much water inside as the cup. In other words, if you displace it, you put the water cup in a big vat of water and see how much water comes out, displaced by the actual size of the cup itself, it won't be 60 times, you won't have 60 times as much volume inside the cup as the walls of the cup. That's Allah. But there's another eitzah, which is called noisin tam lefgam. We know that something which is pogam, a tam that's lost its taste a little bit, becomes bottle. You don't need 60 times the amount. It can become bottle in a roiv. So anything which was left 24 hours without being used is considered tam pogam. So if you haven't used this pot, that's where it comes from, leaving it over for 24 hours. If you haven't used this pot for 24 hours, so then the tam becomes pogam, and you can't taste it. It doesn't taste good. And noisin tam afgam is bottled in. It's not called a tam, so you don't need shishim, even less. So there, if you have your pot that wasn't 24 hours, you could kasher it. So therefore you don't need 60 times the amount. As long as you have roiv, it's good, so that's not a problem. So then when you cook up your pot, so the blias, whatever's in the walls, will come out into the water, become bottle, because as long as there's roiv water, which there is, it'll be bottle, then we don't care if it goes back into the pot. It's important to understand this for a few reasons. A, you can't do this Erev Pesach after the Zman. Because Erev Pesach after the Zman, chametz we hold chametz is asas b'mashu. So even if it's a little chametz, it goes back and it's going to be yasser. It doesn't become bottle. And B, noisin tam lefgam is machloikas. When we pass in the chumah, the noisin tam lefgam is also asser on Pesach. So therefore, any chametz which wasn't bottled before Pesach, once you come to the Zman Isser, it's gonna be problematic to do the hechsher. So Hagolah, even though b'diavad we hold it works, if the guy did it Erev Pesach, because we go with the other shittas, we don't like the kol boy mikvah din, but the chatchila we don't do it Erev Pesach. We got to do it before the Zman, Pesach way. And B, when you come to the to do your hechsher kelim, you should really make sure your kelim are 24 hours, because even though the CR has a nice big vat and you're putting your pot in maybe just 60 times, and we try to keep it 60 times, but after 10 people put their pots in, all the chametz, so to say, that's in the water could group up together, and now you have less than 60, so the next guy that puts his pot in is not going to have 60, so therefore there's a part of that you should only bring the pots in that have been waited 24 hours. If not, you could ask the local rabbi what to do, but chatchila, they do it. They switch the water every once in a while just to make sure it shouldn't add up, but nonetheless, it's better to have it that it's 24. Yeah.
Unused for 24 hours.
Yeah, because even if one guy didn't do it, he can mess up the next guy. So everybody should make sure that it's unused for 24 hours.
What about the pot itself that's had all this chametz dipped into it? Do we have to kasher this all the time?
Again?
If we're going to use this pot.
The pot that you're using, a good question. We'll get to that. We're going to get to that. It's a very good question.
I'm not sure I'm clear on the 24 hours. What is that?
So it's 24 hours. The stuff that's in the walls of the pot get a little sour. So it gets a sour taste. So anything that has a bad taste, it doesn't have the concept. You don't need 60 times to be mevatel. 60 times is that it gives it a taste into the water. In other words, if you cook your water in a pot, it's going to pick up the taste of the potatoes in the pot.
Right.
But if it picks up a bad taste, it could be bottled. It's only if it picks up a good taste. So after 24 hours, the taste is bad. It's pogrom.
So, but how do you use that 24 hours? Like, what?
Makes sense. If you finish using it 1 o'clock yesterday, so by 1 o'clock the next day you can use it. So it's important to understand this concept, because anything you're kashering, if you're going to kasher your kitchen sink, you should make sure it's not used for anything hot for 24 hours. You use it for cold, but you shouldn't use it for anything hot where the heat would make the stuff get into the sink. So for 24 hours before, some people wait three days before. That's a minute, but a kapanim 24 hours before, it shouldn't be used. Anything you're planning on kashering, so this way the hechsher process will work. Now, it's a question.
So you don't have to do lavan. You can just do hagala or whatever.
On what?
On something that you didn't use for 24 hours.
No. It depends on anything that was used with water. In other words, a sink was used for the only. How did your sink become chametz stick? You ate some food on Shabbos, and then they put it into the sink, and then you washed it. Right. So there's hot water coming out of the sink. Right. That's irikli rishon, and it touches the bread, let's say, or whatever chametz, and it touches the sink, and the bleach of the chametz gets into the sink. So it only got into the sink through a water process.
No, I'm saying even with the pots as well as the sink. Like, what is it make? Like, in other words, what's the benefit of waiting 24 hours? What is it that you don't have to do if you wait 24 hours?
If you don't wait 24 hours, so even if you take your boiling hot water and pour it over the sink, like we'll explain,
it's not going
to do it, because whatever comes out goes right back in.
Yeah. Okay, so it has to be at least 24 hours.
It has to be 24 hours.
And the same thing goes with the kalim.
Anything you kashering through water, we 24.
Is that assuming you're talking a metal sink? What happens if what's it called?
We'll tell you. We'll get to it.
Is the kashering for Pesach different than the regular year?
Yeah, it could be different.
How is different on Pesach?
No, the way you do it is not different, but it could be the chumras involved.
Every time you want to kasher a pot, going back to the rock, it's really the hard thing. You need to have the little hot rock in the pot that you want to kasher.
If it's 100, if you're talking about 100% treif pot, if you're talking about a pot which is treif and you want to kasher it,
you took a pot, you left it for a day. You can't just kasher it by boiling water over. You have to actually
put a hot rock so it should flow over. That's how you should do it. Yeah. But not everything is really treif. I'm saying if you take a pot out of you take a pot from McDonald's or whatever, and you want to kasher it, so it's like we'll see in a moment. He's asking, what about the pot you're kashering in? So what pot do I use? Chametz or Pesach? I want to kasher my kitchen, so I boil up a pot. Do I use a Pesach to get pot or chametz to get pot? Mm-hmm. So the truth is, it doesn't matter what you use, as long as you wait 24 hours. If it didn't wait, it could be, but as long as you wait 24 hours. But when you use a Pesach to get pot, if you don't have a large enough Pesach to get pot, you could use a chametz to get pot, but you should kasher it first. Now, for kashering first here, you don't have to use the rock. Again, it's only a chumrah. You just fill it up with water until it bubbles over, and kasher it out.
So for chametz, to go from chametz to Pesach, I think you don't need a rock?
No. I'm talking about you want to use this pot to kasher your kitchen. So since it wasn't used for 24 hours, so whatever you cook up the water in there is not going to be chametz stick anyways. So it doesn't matter. Really, I don't have to kasher it. But for a chumrah, we'll kasher it. You don't really have to kasher it because since it's nice time of gam and you're boiling the water in it, it's not going to answer your thing anyways. But on chumrah de Pesach, we'll kasher it first.
So that water, for example, you'd be using to clean out the sink, maybe?
Clean out the sink. So even if you're using a chametz pot, you kasher it first. There is a minhag also if you use a Pesach pot to kasher it again afterwards. In other words, if you use a Pesach pot to kasher your chametz, to boil it up with water again and kasher it again before you use it for Pesach. Even though Mikra Din, it's okay, you don't have to, but that's a chumrah. So if you use a chametz pot, you should kasher it before. If you use a Pesach pot, you should boil up the water after you finish using it. You should just boil it over one more time and boil it out.
But for Pesach kashering, you also have to use a rack. It's not just for a regular kasher, from treif to kosher.
To do a real,
From chametz to Pesach, you also have to use a rack.
Yeah. If you want to kasher that pot. If you want.
I thought I heard a cooler in there somewhere, but I guess.
No, I'm saying if you're just kashering the kitchen with this pot, you're taking a chametz pot and you're kashering the kitchen, but you're not using to cook your soup for say the night. If you're using to cook your soup, you should kasher it properly. So then you should fill it up, put the rock in, and let it go over.
Right.
But if you're not using it to cook your soup and you're just using it to kasher your kitchen, so then Mikra Din, you don't have to kasher the pot anyways.
Why would you use a chametz pot for kashering for Pesach?
Because you need a big pot. Maybe the only big pot. Yeah, you need 4, 5, 6 big pots. We'll see. You need a lot of pots. You got a big kitchen, so you don't have so many Pesach to good pots. So let's just get to how you kasher your kitchen with it. So we'll talk about the sink. So if you have a metal sink, you can kasher it. If you have porcelain or enamel, anything else, not anything else, but that's you can't really kasher. So then, if you can't kasher it, you can't kasher it. But what you could do is you could put line it with, line it. Either you could put you could just put an insert in there. You could put an insert in there, or you can line it with contact paper or something. And then it's recommended to put like a rack on the bottom so it doesn't actually touch. Now to understand that, because even if you have paper on it, I mean, unless it's really good contact paper, but
it's going to come off.
The klal is like this. The klal is that if you have 2 pots, let's say one kosher pot and one treif pot, they're very hot and they touch each other, it won't become treif. The issa won't come from one to the next. You have to have water in between to pull over the issa from one to the next. In other words, 2 dry things that are touching each other, even if they're hot, the issa from one pot won't travel to the next pot. So let's say you put your pot down on the countertop. So if it's a dry countertop and a dry pot, even if it's hot, it's not going to make your countertop treif. It's a treif pot, or the treifus of the countertop won't go back into your pot. The problem is if there's a little water underneath, which many times is the case, it's a little wet. So the water underneath, if that gets hot, that could transfer the blias from the countertop to your pot, or from your pot back to the countertop. Dry things don't transfer, it only transfers if there's water in between. In a sink there's a lot of water around, so even if you're going to have a covering, so technically you put something hot down, there could be water in between and maybe it'll pick it. It's always better to have a rack underneath. If you didn't kasher the sink, it's better to have a rack there, even if you're going to cover it. You should cover it, and you should put a rack there. But if you could kasher the sink, how do you kasher it? So you know, if you have these immersion things, you can fill up the sink with water, put a thing in, and it'll bubble up. But you call these trucks, I think, to have the kasher your kitchen. But we don't have, most guys don't have that at home. So the truth is, the whole sink became treif with irui. Turned on the hot water. You didn't cook in the sink. There's no fire in the sink. It's just irui. It was poured from the boiler and went into the sink. So it's irui from a kli rishon. It's not actually on the fire. So you could kasher it the same way. The hagolah doesn't have to be in a pot. The hagolah could be pouring from a pot, since that's the whole way it became treif to begin with. So if you boil up a pot and you pour it all over the sink on every single part, if it's a metal sink, you could kasher it. The problem with doing this is the practicality of it, because irui kli rishon is only the space that it hits. So when you're pouring, it'll hit over here, then it'll flow down to here. This part didn't get a good hechsher, only this part did. So in order to get all the spots, you have to do it slowly. You take someone told me a good eitzah, you fill up a big pot with water, then you scoop it out with a small pot, put it on the fire till it bubbles again, and then you pour it slowly up, like this. You pour it as you go up. You go along the sides, and that's the sides are the hard part to get. There's another eitzah which works for the bottom, again, is using the rock, which is that you pour in the sink, you pour in the hot water into the sink, you stuff up the grain, you don't close the drain. What you do is you take an Evan Malubin, you take these hot rocks, if it's not hard, you take a few small rocks again from outside, make sure they're clean, you put it on to heat them up, and then you put it in the sink. When you pour the water in, you'll see it'll bubble around where the rock is, because the rock is hot, it bubbles it. So that makes it from an iroi into a real work, and you move the rock around the sink, and then you can get the whole pot. So even though when the pot pours into the sink, it's only hitting one part of the sink, but when it goes to the rock, it heats it up, and it gets that works. Where the sources for this is, but upon him, that works to make it more than an iroi klirishin. That makes it an iroi klirishin, and it's not hard to do. Just take tongues and you move it around. And it's a good idea to have anyways, because you see by the drain of the sink, there's a little crevice there. So there's a little crevice there, which is not only hard to clean out. I mean, this chametz is bottled anyways there, but the point is that you can't get any chametz be'ein. It doesn't help. Hagolah only works after the pot is clean. If there's dirt on the pot, Hagolah doesn't work. Hagolah works only for the blias inside the pot. So if you take the rock and you burn it on that area, that does a liban kal. It actually burns it over there, and then that gets rid of it.
So you should kasher the drains themselves first?
The drain pieces you could actually just dump into the pot itself. Yeah. So you don't have to do it first, but you should put the drain pieces, make sure they're clean, and put it in.
So any little piece of chametz obviously have to be.
Yeah. Now the thing on top of the faucet also, the strainer. I switch it every Pesach. It's good to switch it once a year.
There's plastic in there.
The plastic you could kasher. It's machlok to kasher, but it's kasher. It's not the end of the world. You can make plastic. So shallow plastic is a parasol. It's like this. So we're not to be making on that plastic kasher. So you could kasher that thing also. Take it off and kasher it. Let's take that off because the steam goes up. You could pour hot water on the faucet also. But that doesn't really need hechsher mikra din. But it's a chumrah we do it. But that's how you would kasher the sink if it was for chametz. The countertops also So if it's granite, you could kasher it. Stone you could kasher. If it's
that's also just boiling water.
Kasher it. If it's
that's also just boiling water.
It's very hot. So again, it's very hard to kasher these things because again, if you pour water on it, so it's only to get that spot. You can spend the whole day, and your kitchen will be a marble by the time you finish kashering it. Some people have these steam things. You can steam it.
That's smart.
So you have to put a little water on it, so it's not just steam; it's water. But you could go through the whole countertop and kasher it. The simpler way is to just cover your countertop. Your kitchen will look like a spaceship, but it's a lot more simple than kashering. Some people do both. They kasher and then cover it. This way you don't have to do such a good hechsher anyways. But you could kasher it, but again, it's very hard to kasher things, and you have to remember most of the times there's no issa really on the countertops anyways, because you don't put a boiling pot on your countertop. You don't want to ruin the countertop. And if you don't put a boiling pot on there, it's not going to become issa. So,
but even if you did, there's no water.
Usually it's a little wet. There's some water. It gets wet. The countertop is by the sink. It gets wet. It's hard to say there's no water there. It gets a little wet. So the best thing is to cover your countertops with something a little thicker than just. It doesn't matter, but just cover the countertops, and that's the best eitzah. We don't really have much time, but just to get into the other big issue is the ovens and the stoves. So that goes into liban. Now, what's liban? The real liban chomer is to take something and make it so hot, so red hot, that you make it red hot that nitzotzes, that sparks come out from it. So to do liban chomer is not so simple. You can blowtorch it, but you'd probably kill your oven. And also to blowtorch it, also people think you just blowtorch it, but you have to put the blowtorch on the spot till that spot comes hot enough. So a few minutes on it, it'll take you forever if you do a proper job. So it's not recommended to do blowtorching unless the guy knows what he's doing. Kill someone down, right?
Self-cleaning ovens.
Self-cleaning ovens is a liban chomer. If you put the self-cleaning on for Pesach, it's recommend to put it on a full cycle, 3 hours, 4 hours. Put it on a full cycle, and to clean out. You don't need 2 hours is enough, but to do a self-cleaning, self-cleaning will do it. If you don't have an oven that's self-cleaning, so the shayla is like this: hagola, something that needs hagola, you could do a liban kal on it. Liban kal, in other words, if you can't do hagola, if you have a big pot, you can't do hagola, you can do a lighter liban, which is to make it hot enough that if a tissue touches it, it will start burning on the other side. In other words, you make one side hot, that even if you touch the other side, the tissue will start burning. So it's not so hot, but you could do that. And to do a liban kal, it doesn't work for things that need liban chamer. What needs liban chamer? Let's say your frying pan, for example, where you fry things on the fire itself. Anything that came in contact with a fire itself, without water, you're roasting on the fire itself, so that needs a liban chamer. And these things we don't kasher. Frying pan, you got a new one for Pesach. You can't kasher it, because to put it in your self-cleaning oven, it will ruin the pan, and you have to do liban chamer on it, and it's very hard to do. So hagolah doesn't work on it. But things which don't need a liban chamer, was not directly on the fire, could have hagolah or a liban kal. So now we have a machlokes in the later achronim, an oven today. Is that something which needs a liban chamer, or is it enough a liban kal? So those are saying, well, it's on the fire, it needs a liban chamer, and then you don't have an eitzah. Either you use a self-clean oven, or if you want to use another oven, you got to blowtorch it. How are you going to do it? But there are those places that say that no, an oven is not called mamash on the fire, because the fire is either hidden, or because you're not cooking on the thing itself. The only thing that goes is maybe steam. Steam hits the side, or things that drip down, but you're not eating off the bottom of you're not putting your food on the bottom of the oven. You're putting on the rack. The rack we'll get to the racks in a minute, but you're not putting it on the oven itself. So therefore, it could be you don't need a liban chamer, you can make a liban kal. So a liban kal is you clean it out real well, clean it out with easy off and this stuff. You should cook up the oven when it's hot with the easy off on it a little bit, so it makes a tam pogum and everything in the walls, and then turn off the oven, cook it up a little bit, like a half hour or so till it gets into the walls, and then clean out your oven, and then you could put on your oven to the highest, and that will do a liban kal, and then you could use the oven.
So you're saying a self-cleaning oven you would use like something like Easy Off?
No, self-cleaning oven you don't do anything.
Oh, this is not self-cleaning.
This is a non-self-cleaning oven. So some people will use an oven insert if you want to be machmir like the other sheetas that hold the liban kal doesn't work. You could use oven insert, or you could cover it. I covered my oven with silver foil. It takes a little time, but you could do it. You could cover the whole oven with silver foil. Nothing's going to happen, and use it.
How long
But
is the liban kal?
How long should you leave it up? You should leave it on the highest until it reaches that degree. In other words, it should reach that degree, and it should stay on for 2 hours. It should stay on for 2 hours on the highest. It should reach the degree, and it should stay on for maybe another hour and a half at a minimum. 2 hours after it reaches that height.
You wait 24 hours before?
So the truth is like this: that you should wait, but you don't really have to wait, because first you're cleaning it out anyways with easy off. You're cleaning it with easy off. So, but you don't have to wait. But you should wait. If you're doing a self-clean, you don't have to wait anything. You can just burn it. That does a liban chamer. You can just do it.
Easy off is for sure, no same time with gum.
Yeah, but it's a side course. That's why it's a shayla. It's not the thing itself is pogum. You're just putting something into it. So you have to wait. But if you're not, you could just clean it out and do that. So that's with the oven itself. That's the shayla. The racks, even if you're going to use the same racks for Pesach, it's l'chatchila to take your rack and put it into someone who has a self-cleaning oven and let them self-clean the oven with your racks in it too. If you can't, anyways, you don't put the food directly on the racks. You usually put it on a pan or something. So it's not the end of the world. You could just heat it up like that. But l'chatchila, since you're cooking on the racks, it's always better to send your rack to.
What's this wrong with dishwashers?
Dishwashers, again, if it's not metal, it can't be kosher. Even plastic, we're not going to make all this. And if it's metal, it could be kosher technically, but the complications of koshering a dishwasher, it's just not worth it. I mean, for 2 days of Pesach, you do it out of dishwasher.
Dishwashers.
Are you out of your mind? You're from South Africa. What's wrong?
For all year round, you could kosher a dishwasher. You find out how to do it. But for Pesach, it's talking about 2 days. 3 days. It's not kedai the shilos involved to cleaning it properly and all that for the headache.
Really?
That's why God made paper plates.
The top of the oven.
Microwave.
Mm-hmm.
Microwave is also a shaila about kashering. It's better. A shaila if it needs to be kasher. Microwave is a three-way shaila. Maybe it doesn't need to be kasher at all, and if it does need to be kasher, could it be kashered? So you have both ends. So again, it's best if you don't use it on Pesach. It's best not to use the microwave. If you don't have eitzah, so then the glass thing on the bottom should be kashered. Pour hot water on it, boiling hot water on it, should be kashered, and the rest have to clean out really well. Make sure it's cleaned out very well. Make sure there's no, where it blows and everything, there shouldn't be any chametz in there. And then you put a cup of hot water in it and let it steam it up. Also should wait 24 hours. But it's only b'diavad. L'chatchila is better not to use the microwave. Just to get to the top of the ovens, and we'll end with this, the top of the ovens. So if you have the coil, kind of the coil thing, so that's a liban chomer. That burns out. There's really no issues. All year you don't have to kasher that from luchas flesh to real kasher. As you cook, it burns out. But for Pesach, we kasher it, so you just turn it on for 10 minutes, and then you should put a pot of hot water on it, just to put a pot on to spread the heat evenly on the bottom, to make sure it gets all over, and you could get the crumbs on the side also, and the other parts of the thing which doesn't get red hot. So you spread it evenly, and that's how you kasher the coils. The rest of the top of the oven, including the drip trays also. So the drip trays that don't touch the food is not really a concern. Some people will, you could kasher it by hagala, you could put it into a pot, or you could just stick it into your oven for a half hour. Don't put it in the longer, it'll get ruined. Put it in for a half hour in the self-clean. More than that, it'll get ruined. Or you could just do hagala on it, or you could cover it. The food's not touching the drip trays, but some of them, the drip trays come up as like a lip and goes over the top, or you'll have a chrome, that should be kashered, because sometimes the pot might touch it. So that should be kashered. Again, you could put it into a boiling, you could kasher that with hagala, you could put it into water, or if you just put the pot on top, if it's bigger than the chrome, so the heat will go over to the side, that'll make a liban kal al kapanim on the chrome, and it'll kasher the chrome.
Should you use a basic pot or?
It doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter. For this, for sure, it doesn't matter. The rest of the oven should be covered in case you put something on top. You're not going to kasher it, so it's practical to kasher it. It'll just be covered. Today they have these glass top ovens, which are very complicated. Shal, if you could kasher it, you can't kasher it, how you kasher it. But again, the place where it gets red hot itself, that's a liban. So that you don't have to kasher, you could just leave it. And the rest of it should be covered. You can't cover the whole thing because that'll ruin it, but if you just cover the parts that are getting hot, there shouldn't be any issue. You could cover it. If you can't cover it, so you shouldn't put anything down on it, or you could put these metal grates that if you want to put your pot on the countertop, you don't want to ruin the countertop, you put these like metal grates, so you can put a few of them on around where the thing is, where it's not the element. So in case you put your pot on, you put it on top of that. You shouldn't put the pot directly on the top of the rest of the glass top. You can't kasher the rest of the glass top. Any food falls on it, you should throw it out. You can't kasher the rest. But the pot itself, where it burns, anyways, that's a liban, so that's not an issue.
And I'm sorry, as you said, where it's not a liban, that part, that should be covered?
That should be covered. You
like what, tin foil?
You can put tin foil on it. It doesn't get hot, so it's not going to ruin it. They say you can't cover the glass top, meaning you can't cover the entire glass top. That'll break it. But you're not covering it anyways. You're cutting holes where the element is, and you can put it on that. And that's.
But the grates on the gas top?
The grates have to be liban, so you could put, if you have a gas, so you have the fire, so you turn it on, then you pick up the grate, you just move it around to make sure the fire gets on all parts of it. Yeah, or you could just put a pot on top of it so it spreads evenly. You put a pot that should spread. You put the gas on the highest.
You wouldn't have to put it through.
The higher not. The higher it spreads all over. The heat spreads.